just come to you today and we praise you and thank you for everything that you've done in our lives and everything that you're going to do in the future. We just ask that you give us the boldness to speak and the words to say. And we just ask that everyone in here would hear your word and let their ears be open and their hearts softened, Lord. And we just praise you and thank you again for everything that you've done and what you will do. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. Oh God, forgive me if I'm nervous.
You got this, girl.
Yes.
All right, so I don't want that. So almost everyone here knows me. My name's Jasmine. I am a recovering addict. God has changed me from being in prison or dead, probably both by now. I had a pretty good childhood. I grew up with a single mom. You know, she didn't do drugs, she didn't drink. She was home with us all the time. I have a brother and a sister. My dad was never in my life growing up because he wanted drugs more than he did to be a kid or to have a kid. And so forgive me because I didn't do this right. So I played with my friends growing up. I had sleepovers. We did Christmases, birthdays, Easter. We celebrated all the holidays. So it wasn't like I was coming from some abusive, mistreated home. Oh man. So my friend and I, so at 15, you know, my friend was staying the night with me. We were walking up the road to this pond that was up the road. And I met a guy and his friend. I knew his friend, I didn't know him. And we started talking after my friend went home and his friend went home. We kept talking, and I eventually lost my virginity to him and got pregnant with my daughter when I was 15 and had her when I was 16. And then I went to school, which was hard, and my mom watched my daughter for me, and I come home, and it was all me trying to do homework and raise this baby. So I graduated in May of 2008, and then I met my ex-husband and my other two kids' dad. Ashland was 3 months old, and hold on, let me get my spot. And then, I missed the part of when I was, before I'd had Ashland, and I was 17. One of my friends and I were over and went to my cousin's house. We smoked weed for our first time. I come home and my mom did everything but beat the crap out of me because she was disappointed. So, you know, she told me to not do that again. I better never do it again, or I wish I wouldn't have. So I did it for a while, and then I stuck around and I did weed, which I didn't think was a big deal. So when I met my kids' dad, we were all right for a little bit. I started living with him after a little bit before I graduated, and we fought all the time. It wasn't hands-on abuse or anything, but we fought pretty much all of our marriage. And so in April 2009, I had my son. We got married right before I had my son. And September 2010, I had my daughter, Cadence. And I started messing around a little bit with pain pills, me and him did. And I got prescribed a few, and so I wanted a little bit more because they helped me. It helped me get through my day. I cleaned my house. They didn't make my back hurt. I could get everything done. It wasn't a big deal. So at 17, I also went to a doctor and got Xanax. You know, he had told me what to go in and say, and I come out with them. I didn't know what they were. Never heard of them. I didn't really take them much. I took them a couple times and made me tired, but I didn't take them enough to get buzzed on them at the time, so I sold them so we'd have extra money so I could buy pain pills. Then I started taking my Xanax, and that was one of the things that helped destroy me and my addiction. And then we started messing a little bit of meth. I tried it. You know, I brought it to one of my family members. He tried it. We stayed up all night, you know. I cooked dinner, I cleaned the house, bathed my kids, got them to bed. Stayed up all night cleaning, doing the dishes, laundry. Thought it was okay to do it every once in a while because I was working as a CNA at the time, and it's hard work. If anyone knows, they've done it. So I would get up and I would take him to work because he didn't have a license. And I would come home, we would smoke meth right before we went. And I didn't say a big deal with that. I didn't do it in front of my kids. My kids have never seen any drugs. So then my light bill was coming. I was buying pain pills and meth instead of paying my light bill. So I would go to my mom and my ex-stepdad and get money off them to pay my light bill. Thought it was no big deal. I would pay them back. The lights were still on. I could still do a little bit here and there, whatever I wanted. So, I then started talking to, while I was still married, and I'm not proud of it, one of the guys that I knew when I was a teenager. I'd heard he was into meth, but I didn't do meth or anything else, at the time when I'd met him, as I was still living at home. So I started talking to him and getting stuff off of him, and I left my husband for him because, I thought I wasn't happy. I didn't try to make that marriage work. So I left my husband for him and I filed for a divorce. About 3 months of being with him, I got CPS into my life. So Dell was his name. Me and him went and stayed with his parents. And in my frame of thought at the time, it was, my kids are okay, they're taken care of, they're not going without, they're clothed, they're bathed, they have a roof over their head, and you're not worried about anything. But really, they were worried about where their mom was, why the mom wasn't there, because I had not been this deadbeat mom all my life. My kids were in my life. I had taken care of all my kids, done birthday parties, Christmases, etc. And so I wasn't worried about it. And 6 months later, I'm like, oh, I didn't know 6 months had gone by. So then we started, buying a lot of stuff, and we were selling it, saving money because we didn't work. We didn't want to work. We just wanted to get high and stay home. And one night I woke up, he was sitting on the end of the bed, and I wanted to get high. And he said, do you want to get really high? I said, yeah. So that was the first night that I used a needle, and I fell out of love with him and everyone else, and I fell in love with doing that. And so we began fighting a lot too whenever we didn't have stuff. When we did have stuff, he wasn't happy, I wasn't happy, I was getting cheated on, everything else. So he pushed me down his stairs and I left, and they were big stairs. So my friend come and got me. I come down here to Valley and started staying. 2 days later, I went to jail for my first time for any kind of drug. I went to jail because I tried to hide a syringe at a friend's house, and the state cop found it. So I got charged with that and marijuana. So I talked to my mom. I called her from jail, and she asked me what I was in jail for because she didn't know at the time, so she hadn't called yet. And I told my mom that I was in jail for possession of a syringe. My mom didn't know I shot up. She knew I was doing meth. She didn't know I was shooting up. So, I was telling my mom this news, and I got out with the intentions of doing good, but I come back to the same friend's house, and of course I wanted drugs. So she knew somebody. Imagine that. So that is when I met Rodney, and he was supposed to go get me some Xanax. So I started hanging out with him a little bit after that, and my friend knew him. So then I started staying with him. It became abusive almost right off the bat. He would hit me, and I didn't have to even do anything. I would just smile wrong or look over in someone's direction, and I was all the names in the book. And I would go home and get the crap beat out of me. I started working as a server here in town. He would come to my work and hit me, and then whenever he wanted to make up with me, he didn't bring me flowers, he brought me dope. So one evening our dope dealer said, hey, you guys want to try something different? And then I tried heroin. I had done it once before, so then that was my new drug of choice. So I started doing heroin and meth. And then not long after that, I was tired of the abuse. We were in a fight. I was walking down the road. He hit me. Someone called the cops. And I got put in jail. He went to prison because he was on parole. And I did not know that until then. I had some pills in my pocket, so then I got my second drug charge. And I got out with the intention of staying sober. And mind you, and all this, I had got a hold of Tracy and them right before I went to jail. Probably about 6 months or so. And I had met up with them once. I wanted help. Well, when I come home, I got the crap beat out of me because he said I went and snitched. That was not the case. I went because I was tired and I wanted help. But that didn't stop me, so we started messing around with heroin. Sorry. Okay, well, before we went to jail, it's after the last time I got out for the syringe. I kicked it up a little bit of notch and I started watching dope being made and helping do it. So after we all went to jail, thank God, I never got caught doing that. And so we weren't paying for much of our stuff then, we were making it. The cops got called and I went to jail. And my family, of course, didn't have anything to do with me because I was putting drugs before everything else and I didn't care about anyone else or how I was hurting them. So I got out and stayed with this other friend. And of course I started doing the same things, and then one of our friends had overdosed on heroin, so I opened my eyes just a little bit, not enough. And I went to, he used me, he let people use me in any way, shape, or form, when I was out of it or not out of it. He robbed me of my money, everything else I would work for. And so I got tired, I wanted to die. It was either kill me or stop using. I could not stop using on my own. So I got a hold of my mom and my brother and I went to rehab in Evansville. But before all this, I had went to a halfway house where I met my now husband, Benjamin. And it was a faith-based halfway house. And I was there for about a month and I snuck a phone in. And I got a hold of Rodney, and he came and got me. I got out and I done the same stuff. So when I went to rehab in Evansville, it got me away from everybody. I got to sober up a little bit and see from a different perspective what I had been doing all these years. So when I got out, I didn't really touch many things. I've done pills, a couple times. I've drank a couple times. I've been sober for a year now. So I got out of rehab and come home. I got kicked out of rehab a week early for tobacco use. I then come home and Ben popped up in my messenger. And we started talking and I went to see him and we had hung out a few times. We started dating, and he come down here to live with me because he was sober in the halfway house in Seymour, and he'd got his own place. So we come down here. We were together for a while, and he proposed to me. And I must say, this is the most sober-minded I've been in probably 10 years. And I'm thankful for that, and I would not have been able to do it on my own if I didn't have God and my family. And, of course, my husband. He keeps me in check. So, that is where I'm at with my life right now. So if you're struggling, there is hope.
Amen.
If God can pull me out of the pits of hell, He can pull anybody out, because I did not want to quit using. Nobody does. I wanted to die. I guess from using all the years, it got me in that state of mind. I didn't care if I lived or died. I didn't care what people was putting in me, as long as I was getting a feeling off of it. So there's a couple verses I wanted to read that I liked. Is Psalm 30, 1-3. I will exalt you, Lord, for you rescued me. You refused to let my enemies triumph over me. O Lord my God, I cried to you for help, and you restored my health. You brought me up from the grave. Lord, you kept me from falling into the pit of death.
Amen.
For 1 Corinthians chapter 10, 13 and 14. No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. Therefore, my dear friends, flee from idolatry. And then I have James chapter 4:7. Submit yourselves then to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you.
Amen.
And I'll give you my husband.
Good job, Jasmine.
It's amazing what God can do in somebody's life. It really is.
Amen.
You know, I was thinking a little bit before. I was just kind of just writing little notes and stuff about what I was going to do or say. And this is her first time ever sharing her testimony. And I'm so proud of her. And just the change that's come over her.
Thank you for putting Josh's memory in there. That means a lot. Jasmine.
It's part of my recovery.
I just feel like I've always felt like my world stopped, but everybody else's kept going, like it didn't affect anyone else. But hearing you say that, it meant a lot. Knowing.
Yeah,
Not
that day I would have come, but I was in bed. I didn't want to come. I wanted to come, but I was dope sick, so I wanted to go find my fix instead of coming there, and I do
Knowing
regret
that
that.
it affected you, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not happy, but I'm happy that it affected you in a way that it helped change you. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
God does everything for a reason, I guess.
Yes.
Sorry.
You're
Sorry,
fine.
still in
You
your
know,
shine, Ben.
to be honest
Still in
with
it.
you, heroin it's a terrible drug, and that was my drug of choice. I've lived with it firsthand, and you get kind of that survivor's remorse from why did I make it out whenever so many friends of mine did not make it. I did it I was a drug addict for 10 years. I think I started using heroin about 5 years into that drug addiction. I came up from a nice family, and when I was in high school, I was going to most likely to be a preacher. So, I grew up in a church, and I never had. It hits anybody anywhere. It doesn't matter who you are or what you come from. It's not a respect of persons, age, sex. It doesn't matter who you are or what you. It started off real simply. I broke my leg, and I got a prescription of pain pills from my doctor. And then back then they gave you a god-awful amount of these things. And then I just chose to rely on them. I remember, it's 20 whatever. I shouldn't have to live in pain, It wasn't a pain in my body that I was trying to stop. It was a pain in my mind, in my heart, in my soul. There was a brokenness inside of me that
Hallelujah.
I didn't like who I was. I was ashamed of me. I was ashamed of my past and things that I have done. So it became progressively worse over time, because even though I thought I was covering those things up, I was making it even more worse with more acts of things that would lead me down the rabbit hole, so to speak. I just, ultimately, I wanted to be loved, and I didn't feel loved. I didn't love myself. I had no respect for myself. And if you can't love yourself, I don't know how you can love anybody.
That's
And
right,
so you get into these toxic relationships where, somebody's abusive, or you don't feel good enough, so you settle for this because you think you deserve this or something because you've done this in your past or this or not. And I've had plenty of those where it just, but because I didn't feel loved and I settled for these relationships, when they didn't love me back, I felt even more worse. I'm not even good enough for that. So eventually it gets progressive, the disease does, and eventually it will turn into a needle in your arm.
Amen.
I always told myself, it was the funnest way to die. Everybody's gonna die. Yeah, that was my funnest way to die. It wasn't fun, really. No, it stopped being fun a long time ago. Honestly, it started off, it started when I was in high school. I thought it was cool to drink, and I thought it would help me, I get to pick up the chicks or whatever. It's because I wanted to be loved, and I didn't know how to get that love because I had a perverse idea of what love was. And I knew God, but I didn't have a personal relationship with God, and so I didn't really truly understand what that true love was, where it's unconditional. It's not based on anything that you can do or give. It's just there. That it's a gift, and you receive it, and it just, I didn't understand any of that, and so that's what started it. I started drinking, and then of course you kind of start to fall in love with the actual drug. It became my idol. It became my God. The drugs and the alcohol. I tell you what, I woke up in the morning. I thought about that. I searched for it. If I talked to you, I was talking to you about drugs or alcohol. I didn't want to talk about anything else. My career path was pharmacy because I love drugs and alcohol so much. I chose a career. I went to college for chemistry so I could get in there and make drugs or figure out how to make drugs. It was my idol. It was my God. It was what I wanted to do. And I'm telling you now, we're all like that. If you use drugs, if it's sex, whatever. If it's not God, then you have another God, and you worship that at its idol. And if we take that when we come to God, I tell you, if you could use the same energy and the same seeking out of drugs and put it into seeking out God, you'll change the entire world. 12 men in this book, the Bible, they literally turned the entire world upside down. And it's because it was a radical change in their lives. That's what testimony is. It's a testimony of what God has done. They saw an actual event happen. It's not just these fables that it's something people have. People don't die for a lie. You know, I thought that drugs was everything, and I was dying for that lie. But I thought it was the truth. I thought it was the truth. And so, today I was looking up what testimony actually means. In the Hebrew, the actual word for testimony is talking about the Ten Commandments and the law of God, the ordinances of God. It's a reminder or a witness of our relationship to God. And it literally, there was a rip between us back before Jesus came and he died on the cross. It all comes to one thing. Christ died on this cross for us. And that was the act of love, an ultimate act of love, because there was nothing selfish about it. He had no sin. He became sin. He became a curse for us. And when I knew all this, as I was sticking a needle in my arm, I overdosed. I literally died for drugs. I'm laying on the floor. It was Christmas Eve. I stopped breathing. 15 minutes. I couldn't breathe. I was purple. I don't remember any of this. This is just what's told to me. But it was peaceful. I'm not going to lie. It was a peaceful feeling. But it wasn't because the drugs was giving me a peaceful feeling. The Spirit of God actually came on me and kept me alive because I should have been dead. My parents seen me like that, blue and foaming out the mouth. The EMTs were there. They stopped working on me. They said, there's nothing we can do. He won't breathe. And this lady, it was actually one of the volunteer fire departments. They had lived next door. They knew us. Like, I had died in my friend's room. I was dead. They were getting ready to write it on the paper, time of death. And the lady said, Benjamin, you have to wake up or you're going to die. And I sat up like nothing happened. I went, God breathed the breath of life into me.
Amen.
He really did. He really did. And I didn't necessarily see anything or talk to God like I'm talking to you here, but I had this feeling that it was more of a, he said to me that he wasn't done with me, he had work for me to do. And you know, it was shameful of me to put my parents through that. They seen their firstborn son dying and laying on the floor. There's nothing they could do for me. Not a thing. And I, you think dying and talking to God and having a miracle happen to you would make you stop doing stuff like that? No, I was rebellious. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. So for another 2 or 3 years, I continued on this path. I would get arrested, and I would do good for about 30 days or something. And then I'd go right back to it, and I would, you know, I'm not a dumb person. I think I'm pretty smart. I don't know if I'm smart or I'm clever. Too clever for my own good, because I would try to, like, trick these probation officers, and it's just sick what you would do to get away with stuff. If you just stop for a little bit, and then you'd be done with it, and you won't have to do it again. I used to steal my mom's concealer and put it on my needle marks so my probation officer wouldn't see them, and then he wouldn't want to, like, drug test me or whatever, but they always drug tested me. And, you know, I never really got away with anything because my parents would call in and tell them I was using. I thought they were the worst people for doing that, but really they were saving my life. I did it about 3 times where I got caught using, and God gave me a lot of grace, gave me a lot of mercy. Because the probation officer said, I'm writing a warrant. There's nothing I can do. You won't stop using, you're not keeping your word. I said, well, what if? What if I go to a halfway house? And he said, you have 12 hours to get into a halfway house. I'm writing this warrant for you. And I really didn't want to go to jail, so I called the pastor at my mom and dad's church, and I said, hey, Tommy, you know, I've known this guy my whole life, and I said, man, they're going to lock me up if I don't get some help and go to a halfway house. There's a guy named Gary Decker up the road. He went to a Pentecostal church. I grew up Baptist. And I was like, oh, I don't know about this. Oh, man, I don't know. It was a culture shock. But, you know, Gary called me. He said, come on. I was drinking. I was half buzzed. They told me I wasn't clean. They usually don't let people in there if they're not clean. At least a couple days clean. Still had stuff in my system. Half drunk, I go to this halfway house. God's good, man. He really is. You know, it's weird. A butterfly landed on my finger while I was drinking a beer. And I thought it was the weirdest thing. It just landed right on my finger. And I was like, oh my gosh. The house, I didn't know this at the time, but the house is called the Butterfly Transformation House.
Is it just the girls?
It's all of it. It's the Butterfly Transformation House. You know, it goes through a metamorphosis. It changes you. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You know, it's weird. I know this Bible, man. I know it.
My best
I
friend
grew
went
up. I grew up in it. I know it. But
Now, Michael, I want to add, this is why what attracted me to Ben. I've never been in the Bible until really now when I went there, but I was studying it when I was there, and I fell in love with him because he knew the Bible.
I did. I knew this thing. But I never applied it. So I have all this knowledge. You know, the Word of God never comes back void, is what this Word says. It's a seed that's planted. And sometimes, you know, it's not the right season for it to grow. You know, wintertime's not a good season for something to grow into a beautiful plant. Or to transform, you know, butterflies are in spring or whatever, whenever they come out of their cocoon. So this Word of God, it was inside of me this whole time. And it just didn't come out until the right time, till the right season when
Our
God wanted it.
seasons change, but his always stay the same, just
And,
like that song.
It's just, I was at this place, well, I stayed at this halfway house for a year, and I did really good, but I have a problem with rejection and stuff, and I shouldn't have been dating and stuff at that time. I wasn't ready for it, and I had been seeing this one lady, and we kind of broke up, and I I didn't really have any feelings for it, but for some reason their rejection just gave me an excuse to kind of backslide a little bit. And I relapsed for about 2 weeks. And it's crazy. You know, sin becomes increasingly more sinful. So that means every time I go back to, after I clean up everything, and I'm good, it leads closer and closer and closer to death each time you go back to it.
Amen.
And I got that drug. I stuck a needle in my arm, and I fell over. I broke my leg, and I overdosed again. This is the 6th time I've overdosed this time, where I've stopped breathing for more minutes than I should have been dead. It was over 10 minutes this time, where I quit breathing on my own. The only reason I'm alive is because people breathe for me. Because God breathes His life in me. Other people, you know, sometimes you need some help. Sometimes you need some help being alive. Because God can do the breathing for you sometimes, even when you can't. He can carry you when you can't carry yourself.
Amen.
He can keep you alive when you can't keep yourself alive. You think it's over, but it's not over. You might even try to kill yourself. You might. I don't want to glorify that lifestyle lived, but you know, I was to the point of death where I wanted to die. I chose death. I sought it out every morning. There's no reason I shouldn't have been alive. One day I tried to end my life. I drank a 5th of alcohol. I got in my car and I started driving. I took my seatbelt off. I took the battery out of the back of my phone and threw it on the floor. And I rode my car into a tree on 70. I